So far, we are seeing a little kinder, gentler Trump, are we not? Sean Spicer, I'll start with you since you know him best.
I think we are seeing a more pragmatic Trump, a Trump that in 2016, when he won, they tried to delegitimize the win. People were attacking him. It was Russia. You didn't win the popular vote, this and that. And he felt like he was on defense, and rightly so. We had false accusations lobbed from one end to the other. And this time, everyone from some folks in the media to big tech and corporate leaders are embracing him. And I think they realized he was right. They were wrong. Bottom line is it's a much different environment. And I think he flourishes in this. He wants people to come to Mar-a-Lago, talk to him about doing business, talking to him about making investments in the United States, as we saw yesterday with the SoftBank CEO. This is a much different. Frankly, Megyn, I'll admit it, I'm jealous. I wish I had been there to 2020. 2016 was historic, but we faced a huge wave against us of people that were trying to delegitimize the win. Now no one can do that. It was a resounding win, and I think he's in his glory.
Just staying with you, Sean, for a second. I don't know about you, but I find it very gratifying to see Zuckerberg and Bezos and all these guys have to go in there and kiss the ring. Do it. I love it.
So you know what? Petty Irish leprechaun Sean hates it. I'm like, why are you giving? I would tell them, time out. You guys wait in line. Stand down. Go down to Boca Raton and wait your turn, and I'll call you up to come to Palm Beach. I get it. I know Trump loves this. He relishes these guys coming there, not just the corporate leaders, but the foreign leaders. I get it, and I'd rather have them on our side and get the policies instituted and make America more prosperous and grow, et cetera. But at the same time, I'm like, these guys bashed him for 4 to 8 years, and now they want back in with a $1 million check to the inauguration committee.
I know. It seems actually kind of a cheap price to pay. $1 million to Jeff Bezos is
but you know
a
what?
$10
Here's the thing,
bill
Megyn.
to 4 of us.
He told Massa yesterday, hey, Massa comes bearing $100 billion in investment. And he says, hey, how about $200 billion? Why isn't he saying to Zuckerberg, that's a nice tip. Now put down $10 million for the inauguration.
That's right. That's right. Why is the Japanese bank executive investing $100 or $200 billion in America, and all Bezos can spare is $1 million?
Right. Exactly.
All right. So here's what I mean by kinder and gentler. This is just one example. He was asked if senators who oppose his cabinet picks should be primaried, which is what a lot of the MAGA faithful are saying. Here's how he responded. Sot 4.
Should senators who oppose your nominees, your cabinet nominees, should they be primaried?
If they are unreasonable, I'll give you a different answer, an answer that you'll be shocked to hear. If they're unreasonable, if they're opposing somebody for political reasons or stupid reasons, I would say has nothing to do with me. I would say they probably would be primary. But if they're reasonable, fair, and really disagree with something or somebody, I can see that happening. But I do believe that if they're unreasonable, I think we have great people. I think we have a great group of people.
So, Mark, let me tell you why I believe him in the tone he's striking there, because I spoke with at least one person involved in this process who was against Gates. And that person told me that when Trump spoke to this senator about Gates and was told he's not going to make it, Trump didn't freak out. Trump didn't threaten. Trump just said, oh, gee, that's too bad. He's a good guy. And accepted the judgment. And we saw that was how he behaved when Gates left the stage, left, and now he's working for OAN. So I take him at his word. I guess if they keep doing it, if they sink Hegseth and they sink RFKJ and they give Tulsi a problem, the tone will change. But what do you make of it?
Well, look, I think sometimes two news stories conflate. I think it's possible that one of those drones kidnapped Donald Trump and replaced him with a cuddly grandpa. A cuddly, conciliatory grandpa. And the aliens don't think we'll figure it out, but we're on to them. Look, go back to what Sean said. You don't have to be super MAGA, just an objective journalist or observer, to recognize just the nightmare that Donald Trump entered the office with, because the dominant media created an environment that created for tens of millions of Americans their reality, that he was an illegitimate president. And then to be investigated perpetually for the entire 8 years, to be voted out of office, and then to say to the voters, here's what I'm about. Same guy. Here's my agenda. Put me back in. After Democrats said after January 6th, et cetera, he could never win another election. So I think he feels a sense of satisfaction, but he also has created an understanding that he gets it better this time. He understands how to be president way better. He's got an incoming second-term government that's not a normal lame duck because they're not exhausted. And because he's had 4 years to write executive orders, to think about who he wants to hire, and to use his vast human intelligence, which is vast. He's just a super genius at analyzing situations and people, to come in and say, I'm going to do this job differently this time. And the overriding factor is he loves people kissing the ring or anything else they want to kiss. He loves billionaires kowtowing to him. He loves knowing how to manipulate and leverage these heads of state. So this is like the ultimate mulligan. He's getting to be president, an incoming president again, with all this knowledge and a much different environment. The press is weaker than it's been since he came on the national stage. And all of these people, from Congress to the governors, to the foreign leaders, to the CEOs, they know that the rules are about to change and that Trump will set the rules and Trump will decide who gets to play the game. And so they're all genuflecting.
So we'll talk about the lawsuits that he's filing against members of the media and others in a second. But Dan, here's another soundbite where he sounds, like the replacement Trump, like under Mark's theory. But there's nothing to see there. We'll update the drone story. There's nothing to see there, according to all of our now national security officials. Don't believe your lying eyes. In any event, here's another soundbite from him talking about how everybody loves me now. Sot one.
I did have dinner with Tim Cook. I had dinner with sort of almost all of them, and the rest are coming. One of the big differences between the first term, everybody was fighting me. In this term, everybody wants to be my friend. I don't know. My personality changed or something.
Is it his personality? You tell me, as a Democrat, why are all of these, that Sundar of Google went in there to see him, Sergey Brin went in there to see him, the guy who created Google, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, like all of, and then not to mention all the bankers who have gone in to see it. They're all going in.
Yep. Look, a lot of them are members of the incumbent party, and that right now is Donald Trump. And I think, as Mark and Sean have said, in 2016, I think Democrats were first stunned, and they immediately turned to anger. Just this idea that he was not legitimate, that Russia had helped him, that there was just no way that he had won or earned the office outright. Now, I think Democrats are just exhausted. I mean, they threw every single thing that they could think of at him, whether, on the political playing field or the courtroom or, the media was certainly not helpful to him. And he won. And I think there's now just this exhaustion, resignation, and in the business world, complete acceptance that he is in charge. He has maximum political power. Perhaps, no one has been riding into the office with more leverage than Trump has in a long time. And part of that is because Joe Biden is essentially missing in action. I mean, Mark likes to make the joke during a presidential transition, there's only one president at a time. And right now, that appears to be the president-elect, Donald Trump, much to Democrats' frustration.
Megyn, here's the funny thing. You can't see this, but this is a picture from December 14th, 2016. All the people sitting around this meeting in Trump Tower, it's Tim Cook, Bezos. It happened in 2016. They all came, but to Dan's point, they didn't like him. They didn't think he was legitimate. So, to Donald Trump's point, they all kissed his ring in 2016 initially. They came up to Trump Tower. I mean, there's probably 20 of these tech executives in this room. And yet, very different outcome. The American people spoke very loudly. It wasn't that Donald Trump won. It's that the policies of the left failed. The open borders, the DEI, the woke policies failed. And these corporate leaders that bought into it all are now realizing they were wrong. It wasn't that Trump won, it's that they lost.
Well, and think about too, Sean, in 16 when they did that, we have a good friend who's a senior executive at Google. Google gave their employees a day off after the 2016 election for a day of mental health mourning. Now there's none of that. Now it's just even the employee base is well, I hope we're going down there. Did you see Bezos was down there? Like, when are we going down there? So I think now it's not just the executives, but like rank and file employees who are resigned and accepting that Donald Trump is the next president of the United States.
Yep.
Better to go along and get along. Tim Cook was another one who went in there this time around, the head of Apple. So, Sean, you gave the thumbs up when I mentioned the lawsuits that Trump has been filing. And this is not in his capacity as president. This is as private citizen Donald Trump. He's totally entitled to file whatever lawsuits he wants, and the courts will respond accordingly. But he did, in fact, file the one against the Des Moines Register that he threatened yesterday. This is based on Ann Seltzer's final poll of the 2024 election cycle, showing him down. I'm trying to remember whether he was down or up 3 or 4 points.
Down.
What was it?
Down.
He was down. And he wound up winning Iowa by 14. So it was completely wrong. And she's embarrassed and she retired. I mean, she retired on a loss, which is just awful. Like, that's, I'm sure, not how she wanted to go out, but she did humiliate herself. Now, I don't see the lawsuit unless Trump has some proof that comes out that actually shows she did do it as election interference. Like, there was some intentionality behind this alleged fraud to mislead people in order to change the vote. I have seen and I have heard absolutely no proof to that effect, and I see none alleged by Trump. It's just a supposition that that's why she did it. But what do you make of that lawsuit and the lawsuit against the Pulitzer board, which we talked about, Nobel, which we talked about the other day? Was it Nobel or Pulitzer? Why am I forgetting all my facts?
Pulitzer.
It was the Pulitzer board that gave the New York Times the Pulitzer Prize for its Russia reporting. But we talked about this yesterday. The reason they did it is because the Pulitzer Prize made its own independent statement saying nothing came out after those reports to prove the facts therein untrue, which is potentially a defamatory statement. Anyway, what do you make of his legal strategy right now?
Well, you're the lawyer, I'm not, so I'm going to defer to Megyn Kelly when it comes to legal matters. I will say the one that I get excited about, you mentioned, is the ABC one, because that's completely false, and Stephanopoulos knew it. And I think that when reporters get called out for being wrong, that's a good thing. They need to be held accountable just like anybody else. And so I was excited about that. I think the bedwetters like Chuck Todd and Jim Acosta, who are talking about this being a threat to the media, are morons. The bottom line is that why should they get away with defaming people with inaccurate information or information they know to be wrong? Look, the Sullivan standard that the Supreme Court has set for public figures proves that you have to prove intent and malice. It's a very high bar. And so there's a big difference for someone even like me who's had this kind of issue come up. The lawyers will tell you, God, this is how much it's going to cost you. This is the burden that we have to meet. This is what's going to happen during discovery in terms of your emails, your texts coming out. So there's a reason not to do it. Now, in the Iowa case, my understanding is that what Trump's lawyers are going against isn't the Sullivan standard saying you defamed me, but in fact, a consumer law that Iowa has about misrepresenting people. Again, I'll defer to you and the lawyers about the nuances of that, but they're using a very interesting tactic saying that they violated Iowa's consumer statute, which prevents misinformation about a product. Now, again, it's a very narrow reading from my layperson standpoint, but, look, I think what it does, when that poll came out, right, first of all, the Iowa poll has had a storied history of problems. The bottom line is that didn't pass the smell test, right? And nobody bought that, both in terms of what other public polls at the time said and in terms of what the data was suggesting where Iowa's electorate was. So it didn't make sense. And so the question is, why did they go through with it? What did the crosstabs show? How did they sample the electorate? Did they know in advance? And this is where the discovery phase comes in. Are there emails that show that they knew that there might be some problems with how they created the sample that was based off of? I don't know, but my guess is that's why you go through this to the discovery phase. So you can say, gosh, this doesn't add up. And them saying, well, who cares? Go ahead with it anyway.
I think that one's going to get thrown out on the papers. I think they'll move to dismiss it, and it will be dismissed without the exchange of discovery. Go ahead, Mark.
First of all, I agree with Sean about the ABC case. And I think there are now probably 5 votes on the court to change the Sullivan standard. And Donald Trump may bring a case that gets the court that does that. But I think it's overly litigious to do what he did yesterday. Ann Seltzer's my friend. She used to be my polling partner, and she's been one of the most accurate pollsters in America. It's true that she's stepping back from doing political polling, but she announced that, Megyn, before this poll came out. She's not retiring. And to say, I don't think it's right to say she's been humiliated. I think people have tried to humiliate her. But every pollster I've ever worked with, every pollster whose work is respected, sometimes polls are wrong. In fact, statistically, 1 in 20 are wrong. To suggest election interference.
She has been humiliated. She was 17 points off. Everybody ran around saying she's a gold standard. She's a gold standard. She actually had the potential to change the trajectory of the race. She showed Kamala Harris winning by 3 in a deep red state. Trump won the state by 14. She was 17 points off and completely blew it. She blew it. So she is humiliated. I look at her and I see someone who is humiliated. For those of us who have been holding our breath for the past several months, we can finally exhale in the wake of this presidential election, right? Work can finally be done on the major issues that this country's facing, and one of the most significant is our national debt. Look, the fact is our nation's broke, and that debt is a house of cards that cannot be quickly dismantled by anyone. So the strategy remains the same when it comes to your investments. You might want to diversify your savings. Virtually all the experts say that's a good idea. This is why I want to tell you about Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control and out of our president's control that it really can be important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you if you would like to convert all or part of an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, which is like a hedging of the bets. And the best news is it does not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. You just text MK to 989898 and you get your free info kit. And plus right now you will receive a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased Silver Eagle coin. Protect your savings with Birch Gold. Text MK to 989898 and claim your eligibility for free silver today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.